Welcome to Parenting is Final Fantasy. I'm Drew Kreisman.
And I'm Ira Kreisman.
And we're going to do the thing where you ask me questions, and I'm going to answer them, right? That's what this show is.
That was my plan.
Yeah, you have questions, right?
I do. I've got several questions. Now I'm looking at them and deciding which one to ask. Ooh. Have you seen the videos where people throw Kraft Singles cheeses on babies' foreheads?
I have seen those. Yes.
Would you, have you, and or would you do that for internet clicks?
For internet clicks? No. No. To get my son to stop screaming. Now, the answer to one of the questions, I can't remember if it's the first one or the second one now, is that no, I have not done this yet. All things, though, do start to get on the table after a certain point. And so, obviously within reason, they put those never shake a baby billboards up for a reason, because sometimes when you've been screamed at for an hour, it does get difficult to discern what to do. And so I've absolutely found myself that if it had occurred to me in the moment, I would have done it. I would have if I'd have thought of it. If we had any around. We also just don't have Kraft Singles. That's not something we have. As you know, I'm not much of a cheese guy, and as much as my wife does eat cheese, typically not in Kraft Singles fashion. So
sure.
It would require enough forethought for us to go to the grocery store to acquire Kraft Singles for the express purpose of throwing them at our child.
So to follow up on that, we've talked about how your child in particular is going to be surrounded by jokes and wordplay. Yeah. And I wonder if can you tease a baby, and if you can, is that okay?
Yeah. Okay, so something that both his mother and I have started to do, and I don't know, so if there's a behavioral scientist listening to this, slide into my DMs and let me know if this is horrible. But you've maybe even heard us do this sometimes when he's yelling, but we know he's not upset. He's just kind of randomly making noise because he's testing his lungs, or because he maybe wants some attention because he's just kind of a bored baby who lays there all day and can only do so many things. He can't go anywhere on his own, right? And he'll just kind of go, ah! And then sometimes we'll just look right back at him and go, ah! So we're kind of already teasing everybody. Now, if that really upset him, made him cry, we would stop doing it, right? He seems mostly amused by us doing that.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe we're encouraging him to do it more. There are times it's definitely okay, we got to stop goofing with him that way. But yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of being playful and goofing with, but I definitely don't want to ever do the putting down or going overboard with mocking. I guess you could say that's kind of mocking, right? I guess that's the thing. Is if he's going and I'm going and then we're mocking him. So I don't want to do that too much. We're maybe taking a little bit of advantage there of the fact that he's still so young. He doesn't understand intent. He doesn't get sarcasm yet, right?
Sure.
So yeah, it's definitely once he starts to put together language and things, something I'll think more carefully about and make sure I'm trying to model the type of behavior. And really throughout my life, trying to drop sarcasm as much as I can has honestly been something that it's just been a goal of mine. It's an easy habit to fall back into. It's a safe place to be. And sometimes around friends and family who really know your intentions well. But that's kind of the thing, right? Is intentions. And a baby or a young person doesn't have any way of really knowing for sure your true intentions. They're learning to trust the world for the first time. So it's not cool to mess with them, right?
Right. Yeah. So
the fact that he doesn't understand that we're kind of messing with him makes it sort of funny. But I think once he started to get it, it'd be nah, that's not fun anymore. Now Now, we got to find a different way to have fun.
So, similarly, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
can you teach a baby manners, or to extend it, ideals like justice and truth, or even into the spiritual? Is that something that you have thought about? How you're going to do that once he's able to start understanding manners and morals and spirituality?
It's definitely something I think about, as he gets older. In the early days, I think I've been more focused on, I guess, just the foundational educational types of things. So first of all, there's like the physical growth stuff, right? So you want him to learn how to use his body. We're getting to the stage now. It's like, okay, you really need to start crawling and being able to turn over on your own. He's pretty good at turning over back and forth. He's still not crawling much, and that's one of the next big hurdles that we're going to have to get to. So there's those physical things, right? I've probably been more focused on what can I do to make sure that his brain is growing in these early stages, that he's remaining curious, that his, listening skills and looking around and interpreting the world skills are growing and all of that. But there's a lot of, I've read some stuff on this. I've watched some videos. It's hard to know for sure from what I understand of like how much you can really impose. There are some people who believe that if you pick your baby up every time that they cry, for example, you're teaching them that's how they get what they want, is to cry. And I don't know about all of that, but my sort of catch-all, I can't remember if I said this before, but my catch-all response to a lot of these types of things where there's like debates or divisions of thought of how you should do it, or more old school or new school mentalities, is like, I just like a variety. Like, I don't pick him up every single time he cries, but if my kid's really screaming and hollering and having a terrible time and I can pick him up and make him go to sleep, that's going to be better for everybody. So I don't overly worry about teaching bad habits early on, because we don't do anything all of the time, which is in some ways we're trying to get into sleepy time habits, which is more difficult for him. He's just really struggled with that, but we've tried to make nighttime a routine that's exactly the same. But with other stuff, it's just you try to recognize times you can let him cry it out a little bit longer, and times where that's maybe not such a good idea. And I think it's going to be similar with that, right? I think if you're always imposing your ideologies or your beliefs, you're always trying to teach your kid. I don't like missing teachable moments, but he's a baby. I can't have, it's like sometimes he's just going to lay there and stare at the ceiling. But I try to give him as much of those things that he needs as I possibly can. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a constant search for that type of balance, really. But I just am of the belief that I think at this stage they're too young for anything to really stick forever and ever. I mean, you could mess your kid up maybe at this stage, but I think whatever habits they're going to learn, it's like, they can unlearn some habits,
So you're not worried about coming up with a plan specifically for please and thank you, hello, goodbye, those sorts of things?
Well, I do hope, we will model those things. Those are just things that we do, right?
Sure. So just the modeling.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. But what I've often actually wondered more about is, because I just assume that he'll have a lot of that stuff because that's how Katie and I are. And, here and there we'll explain, here's why you say thank you, here's why you say please, here's why kindness is important. But what I wonder most about is once he starts making his own friends, and then he's got other people influencing him about what politeness is. And if he goes over to his friend's house and, now he thinks that, well, you don't have to say please or thank you or whatever, because rudeness, I've noticed, you may have as well, is very common in this world. And some people are like that around their kids. And that's until he starts making his own friends, I'm not too worried about him being unkind or impolite, just because he's such a happy baby and he's around us all the time. That's how we talk to each other. We're all, if he's hearing mom and dad say please and thank you to each other all the time, I guess that's my hope.
Sure. So that's a problem for 3 or 4 years from now.
I think so. Yeah, though we'll see. You do got to monitor what they watch, but right now it's all Miss Rachel and Sesame Street, which is all, again, about teaching those kinds of very basic values that I agree with. So it's like, yeah, okay, cool. So far, smooth sailing on that front.
So speaking of Miss Rachel and Sesame Street,
yeah,
have you had thoughts about screen time? I know that's a big deal in young adult brain, early childhood brain development.
Yeah.
And on top of that, when do you think Lachlan will get his first cell phone?
Oh my God.
When did you get your first cell phone?
In my college.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe I had one in high school. I actually think it was senior year of high school. I do think I had a cell phone by then. But, so I have thought about this a lot. And I've read about this probably more than a lot of the other topics, just because it's a little more, unique to our time. This wasn't nearly as big an issue when we were growing up. Now, we had, TV. You sit in front of the TV for too long or whatever, and that's a similar thing. So but even with that, I already worry sometimes that I give him too much Miss Rachel. It's kind of become a routine that every morning he wakes me up at 7 o'clock. I'm a little bit too tired to be waking up right at that time, but if I can get some food, some coffee, and take a shower, I can wake up enough to start taking care of a baby. As it just so happens, about 45 minutes of Miss Rachel is about how much he'll watch in complete silence. And so that's what we do for the first 45 minutes of almost every day, right? And so I go, well, damn, now am I starting to condition him? Actually, just today, he was throwing a fit that I couldn't get him to calm down from. I had fed him, I had changed him, I had walked around with him, and then I laid him down and I put Miss Rachel on the phone and he totally calmed down. And on the one hand, I was like, oh, thank God. And on the other hand, I was like, oh, wow, shoot. Am I conditioning him to need this? I don't want to do that. But then I think, okay, I think about all the other times throughout the days, most of the time where he's very, very happy and he doesn't have Miss Rachel on. So if it's something that brings him comfort, as long as he doesn't need it every minute of the day, again, I think it's just you got to constantly monitor those things, and that's how it's going to be with once he does kind of have his own screens. But I do think when we're out sometimes, if he's, we're in a long line at Costco the other day, he starts fussing a bit, and I get the phone out, I put Miss Rachel on the phone, and I let that play for 5 minutes while we check out, so we can do that without a baby hollering at us. So again, it's like now he's 6-7 months old and I'm putting my phone in his face all the time to show him a thing he likes to make him be quiet. So I don't know. I do think about this one a lot because we're long from the days of, and before his own cell phone, a lot of people have those little like iPad, like with the rubber ends that, they give their kids so they can watch whatever kids show. And we've got some friends who have their child is about to be, I think, 4 now. Man, that happened fast. Mm-hmm. And we've been out with them, and he mostly behaves himself. But if he starts to get a little whatever, sometimes you go, okay, they take the thing out of the backpack, they hand it to him. He watches his show for 15 minutes while we have our conversation. So, yeah, I don't know, and I'm not sure these types of devices have even been around long enough for people to have done full, studies on generations. I'm hoping by the time Locke is 5, we'll have a bit more.
Sure. Well, I can tell you that in the school district where I work, we have banned cell phones during class time.
Yeah.
And at the lower levels, they're banned from the schools entirely.
Right.
And it's because no matter how interesting I might make my lesson on accessing academic databases, I cannot compete with Twitter and TikTok and whatever else. In fact, if I were sitting in on that lesson, I might also be distracted by the internet.
Right.
And I have noticed that my attention span, especially for getting into a longer novel, has decreased.
Yeah.
Which is a bummer because I love to read. So I've had to retrain myself in some ways. I listen to a lot of audiobooks so I can listen while I do chores and stuff.
Yeah.
But it is developing an attention span, I think, is an important skill. I don't know what that means for a child of 4 months or whatever it is.
Sure.
But yeah, but at the same time, if I'm standing in the line at the grocery store, which I hate, I might also prefer to look at my phone. So I don't have a solution. I'm not even sure what exactly the problem might be, but I also think about it, and I don't have a child.
Well, right. No, I think you articulated a bit there what the problem can be, which is not having an attention span, not being able to. And I've experienced this frustration throughout my career, right, of trying to produce content. I used to write a lot more long form storytelling type of articles, but people don't read those as much. The numbers on them, you could just look and see. You could spend several days researching and writing a 3,000 word article and get only a couple of hundred clicks on it, and then write 500 words on how someone said something stupid during the game last night and get several thousand views. And It's the same with video content. We've been doing YouTube stuff for Final Fantasy page. I've been making stuff at Mile High Sports for the last couple of years now on Instagram and YouTube. And the 10-minute long, 12-minute long top 10 videos that take time to research and think about and write the scripts for get a couple hundred views. And then I do a 1-minute long video about how this might be the last year of Charlie Blackmon's career, which it turned out to be. And that 1-minute long video that took me maybe a half an hour total to write, record, and edit got 30,000 views.
Holy moly.
Because a 1-minute attention span, and across the board, my 1-minute videos get about 5,000 views. My 10-minute videos get about 500 views. So why in the world... but I like diving deeper on a topic. We do these longer things. Mm-hmm. So I'm with you. I don't want to just succumb to that. I like making 1-minute videos too. There's actually a fun challenge in telling a story in a minute. And that can be great. But I don't want Lachlan to grow up and not have an attention span, or to be somebody who only wants to sit inside and look at his phone or look at his computer or look at a TV screen, as much as I'm somebody who does those things too, right? So again, back to I think the other point I was making earlier is the way, for now at least, that I plan to tackle a lot of this is to just be positive and encouraging about a variety of other things. I think ultimately Dad got to this place with me where he would get really frustrated when he thought I was playing too many video games or whatever. And he was like, maybe if instead of me telling him that I don't like his video games, I just be more encouraging at certain times about going outside. And that could still sometimes be a little bit obnoxious, I'm not going to lie. When you're 13 or whatever. But
or when the Nintendo Wii would do that. You want to go outside?
You should probably go outside, but you should. And I think even more than that, instilling in him a love for going on walks, going to the park, going to the library, reading books. And as long as he still loves those things, then it's okay if he loves his tablet and he loves his video games and he loves his TV show and he loves his cartoons, right? That as long as it's those variety of things and you don't get to the point where it's like, hey, let's go for a walk. And he's like, no, Miss Rachel, and maybe we'll experience that one day, but hopefully not.